Hey everybody, welcome to the next in the Apex interview deep dive series. I'm Tim, I'm your head of community. If you haven't seen any of these before, this is basically just an opportunity for you to get to meet some of the people that are going to be taking part in the Apex challenge, or maybe it's just an idea or an opportunity for you to learn a bit more about the Apex challenge, or maybe you've thought, I don't know if I'm quite ready to be able to do something like this. Maybe the people that you see in these interviews will encourage you to go for that big leap. Now, I'm going to be joined by the wonderful Courtney Kyle tonight, and I'm lucky enough that this is going to be one of the first people I get to interview that I've actually met and I've seen in the flesh because we did the community hike together. So without further ado, let me bring the lovely Courtney in. Here she is, brilliant. And we did have a little bit of a technical hiccup earlier on, but it's all sorted, it's all done. So Courtney, how are you, my love?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on and letting everyone meet you, because it was a privilege to get to meet you when we did our community hike, and we had some almighty weather and conversations, and we got to learn so many things. And we'll talk a little bit about your art and things later on, because Courtney's got this amazing project and way that she does her art and how she gets art out there to people, which is fantastic. But we'll come on to that in a minute. But okay, so first of all, let's just find out a little bit more about you and kind of about where your sort of journey with fitness and the outdoors and events and things like this came from, because it wasn't you that started these events. You were actually kind of influenced this from your family, right?
Yeah, that's right. When I was much younger, watching my father, first when I was really young, just, he would go to the gym and take me and my siblings with him, and we'd be in the nursery watching him working out. And then later on, he started doing things like triathlons, and he's a swimmer. He used to coach swimming. So he did some endurance swimming events, things like that. So I would, be a spectator and also participate as his crew, handing
Okay.
him bananas and helping him get through his event. So yeah, that was my first experience with, especially with endurance events.
Okay, so you said he was a bit of a swimmer and stuff. So did you do stuff from kayaks and things like that, like when he was doing events?
Yes. So I would be in the kayak. First, it started at the triathlon. So I offered to volunteer as a lifeguard for the swimming portion, which is super fascinating, by the way, because it was clear to me, being completely naive to the sport. When people start swimming and you're out there lifeguarding, people are having panic attacks. They're like not used to the muddy water and the number of people around them. So, but I got to see that firsthand. And of course, my dad would come and check in with me as I was lifeguarding. And then later on, there was one event he did where he swam like 5 or 6 miles around this island in the Tennessee River. This is in Alabama, where I'm from. And I was there alongside in the kayak, handing him his bananas and his gels and his water. So,
I mean, I've done a couple of triathlons, but I've never done anything where I've had to take stuff on board in the water. And I understand the premise of how people do it with treading water and eating stuff, but the idea of actually having to try and do that just it fills me with dread. I'm like, no, I'd rather just kind of get my swim done and not have to deal with that. But 5 miles is way further than I've ever dreamt of doing. But okay, so what got you then into trying to do fitness or events? Is that something you did as a teenager or stuff, or was it just kind of something that didn't happen till later in life?
yeah, it was when I was actually like 14, 15 years old. My family and I, we went and got like a family gym membership. And I think
Yeah.
that's really where it started for me. Like I was never into sport as a kid. I always
Okay.
looked like, why do we have to compete with one another? Like, can't we all just be friends? And then we got this gym membership and I found my happy place in the gym. Loved it. Like started going to classes, got really into strength training, and started just, it's that competing with myself that I started doing there in the gym. Loved it. And then later on, I can't remember how old I was when I signed up for my first 5K, but started signing up for races like in the community where I grew up in North Alabama, lots of charity races and things like that. So started with a 5K and then I stepped it up to a 10K and did that for a good while. And then that was at the same time that I was, lifeguarding at these events and helping my dad get through his endurance events.
When did you kind of make that sort of jump from doing, I hate to say it because it always sounds bad, but from doing like the smaller races and the smaller kind of fun weekenders to doing something of more like substance? Like when was that shift for you?
So that shift came for me after I moved to the UK and had been living here for a few years. And so I moved here in 2015 and started getting into hiking and camping and just being outdoors a lot, which is easy to do in this country. Like the right to roam, the fact that there's not as many predators and things to worry about, like no mountain lions to think about. I don't have to carry bear mace with me. And you can just go and be outdoors all day and hike all day. And so that's where I really started to think like, I think I could do more, can do, I can go greater distances. And the first thing that I signed up for over here was a half marathon. I signed up for a half marathon. I think this was in like 2018, I think, in Wales. I did a half marathon, and that was the first thing that I was like, let me just see. But then a few years later, I did the Yorkshire Three Peaks, where it's like a marathon distance, and you go up and down these three peaks. It takes like 12 hours if you're just walking it. And it was after I did that I was like, if I can walk this amount and go up and down three peaks, I bet I could run a marathon.
I love. Right, I'm going to go back one thing. So I love that your attitude towards like being in the UK is you can go hike, you can hike everywhere, free to roam. We can do this. Whereas the Brit response to this would be, yeah, but we've got to pay for parking and we can't do that. The Brit response would always be coming from a negative point, and then I love it that you're like, this is amazing because you're thinking, well, there's no bears, there's no mountain lions chasing me down, and we're like, oh yeah, but there might be some mosquitoes. Be careful of those things around. So, but I love your kind of progressive mind as well, though, because it's the same way that my mind has always worked. Like I've always got 5K, 10K, 10K, but half marathon. Well, and then I started making those bigger jumps like you, and admittedly, my jumps have started to get much bigger. Maybe slightly naively, but they have got bigger. So you made this jump. So did you do a marathon then? Have you done one to date?
Yes. So, okay. So I did that Yorkshire Three Peaks in, I think it
Hmm.
was like June of 2022. I came back and I had that, thought in my mind, like I could do a marathon. And actually, it was one day I had a day off. I live in Sheffield. I was walking around Sheffield. I'd gone to like get my nails done, was just walking down the block. And there was this guy raising money for the London Marathon. And I was like, hey, like I'll donate to your cause and tell me about your training and how many marathons have you done? And I just got talking to this guy who I have no idea who he is, only met him once. But, we got to talking and he was doing the London Marathon in October. So this was a few months away. And he just said to me, he's like, you should do it. And I'm like, yeah, I should. Because he said, look, what's the worst thing that could happen? He said, the worst thing that happens is maybe you walk part of it. I'm sure you can do it. So he encouraged me and he said, go look for charity spots because it was, kind of late to be signing up.
So
Um,
if you were doing the London Marathon October, this must have been COVID time.
this was in 2022.
Yeah. So yeah, because that was when because it was in a different year. It was a different time of the year because normally it's always in April. We've just had it. We've actually just had the London Marathon weekend just gone. So it normally happens in April, but they had to move stuff about to try and fit it in, didn't they?
Yes, that's right. That was a year that they had to postpone it back to October. So yeah, and this conversation took place in it was like end of July. So
So you didn't have long to train.
no.
I love this. This is great. All right. So you found a charity spot.
I found a charity spot. I was like, I'm doing this. I have 2 months to train. I mean, I'm, it's in good shape. I go to the gym regularly still. I had a good process. And what I did was right, okay, 2 months basically, all of August, all of September, because the marathon was like the 6th of October or something like that. It was really early in
Hmm.
October. So I get on the YouTubes. I watch a bunch of videos about how endurance athletes do it, how to do a marathon. Like, just took in as much information as I possibly could and just distilled out, what are the common denominators here? Okay, I need to fuel myself. I need to progressively increase my miles. And I came up with this training plan and just executed on it. Like, I already, I'd been running a little bit. I was doing a couple of 5Ks a week as part of my training, doing some sprinting and things like that. But yeah, I just created this plan and started training and started practicing things like fueling myself while running. Um,
I love
and
that because again, this is probably going to sound like quite a generalization I'm going to make here. However, I'll speak from my point of view. When I started doing things like this as well, I would always be that person that I just go on the internet and search for a program to follow. I'd almost go, I'm looking for someone that's done that before me and I can follow their blueprint. Now, I don't quite do that as much. Now, I'm more like you. I'm like, right, let's research this and let's figure out what works for me. Let's figure out how I can make this work for me, because quite a lot of the time, we just go for a program and we go, well, if I follow that program, theoretically, I should be able to do it and there should be no problem because someone else has done all the work and figuring it out. But that's not the case. Like, you've got to do it yourself. And you had such a short window. So I love that you went, well, no, I've got to figure this out. So how did it go? How did that training, like that 2 month training block go? And how did it actually kind of go during the marathon?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what I did. First was I figured out what was my baseline. Like, one
Okay.
morning I went out, fasted. I think I'd only had like a cup of coffee. And I just said to myself, like, let's figure out how much can I run without fueling myself, without more training, whatever. And I
Okay.
managed to do, it was pretty good. I managed to do 10 miles that day.
Okay.
That's when I started hitting my wall. So I took that as my baseline. And then again, all that information, took it in, and then started training with taking in gels every 45 minutes, take a gel, kept extending my distance. Also, the great thing about training in Sheffield is that it's very hilly. So get, you get some good hills in your training. I, over time had worked out that I've got this comfortable 10-minute mile pace. I know it's not fast, but it worked for me. Very middle of the road, happy to stick with it. And so I plan to do the marathon with that 10-minute mile pace. And with that, I was like, okay, the math says I should finish the marathon. If I can run the whole time, I should finish it in 4.5 hours. And I did. Like, I got to the marathon. I only slowed down once to take a dose of ibuprofen because I didn't want to choke on the ibuprofen. uh, that was it, but kept my pace, steady pace, and finished in 4.5 hours.
Brilliant. I love it. A true story of, if you put your mind to it and you follow your plan, you follow your programming, and listen to your body, which is what you did from day one, you can't really go far wrong. And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of the time people tend to, especially if we follow a program that's been written out, we don't listen to our body and go, but the paperwork says I got to do this. So I think that's it. Would you say that's a big key, like a key takeaway that you took from that specific event that you've kind of carried forward into, whether it be your hiking, your gym stuff, the Apex Challenge, or anything? Is that something that's still a key thing to you? Is learning to listen to your body? What is your baseline, and then where do I go from that point?
Absolutely. Always listen to your body. Let it tell you what it needs. That became really important in terms of rest and recovery. Uh, I'm someone I have a lot of energy and I like to go, 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 and I like to push myself. But when you're training for an event and you're getting closer to that event and you are pushing yourself, like, you your body will stop you at some point if you're not being a little bit more proactive in reading the signals that your body sends to you. So something for me now that I like every day, I have to make sure I stretch. I get some movement and some stretching in every day, because if I don't do that, then my body, it is like clockwork. It will wake me up at 2:30 in the morning, like dead asleep. I will wake up and, have to like just move and stretch. And so you do learn to really listen to your body, because if you don't listen to the whispers, it will start shouting at you.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that. I really do. I really do. And as you get older as well, it starts to become more. You have to spend more time warming up, more time cooling down, and more time. It's almost more important doing all the extra stuff than it is the main mileage stuff. That's the I kind of find that to be the case. So what then? So you did these marathons. What brought you to the Apex Challenge then? Let's kind of bring it back into where we're actually aiming. So what made you think about doing the Apex Challenge? So you've been doing your marathons, running, and programming stuff. So were you just like missing? Did you find the marathon great, but it didn't quite tick all the boxes you wanted it to, or are you just up for a new adventure?
Oh gosh, a couple of things. So one is, when I was training for the marathon, honestly, like, I was running on the roads, running on paths, getting the miles in. And when you get to that place where you are really pushing the distance, and every weekend I'm running like 17, 19, 20 miles, I'm getting bored, and I'm like, "Oh, I just really miss the peaks." Like, all of my time had been focused on training and road running, and I really started to miss being out in the hills and the peaks. Um, so that was one aspect of it. Another thing, it just came to my mind, like, I don't know, because I'm always in the Peak District. Uh, I had done the Yorkshire Three Peaks. I have done the national Three Peaks. I just haven't done them in the 24-hour time. I just did them over the course of a week once. But I got to thinking while I was training for this marathon. I was like, gosh, I bet I could do 30,000 feet of climb in 3 days if I could just, pile the peaks up next to one another. Like, I was thinking maybe a few Munros back to back or something like that. And I'd had that project in my mind, like this goal, like, I want to do 30,000 feet in 3 days, 30,000 feet in 3 days. I'd had that in my mind for, honestly, for almost a year. Cause then I, did the marathon, then I bought this house and renovated it. And the whole time I was renovating, I just kept thinking, like, this is going to happen. And then one day, I'm scrolling on the Instagram, honestly, and it came up as like an ad. So I saw this challenge just present itself to me, and as soon as I saw it, I thought, that's it. 30,000 feet in 3 days. How about 28,000, whatever it is, in 48
Yeah,
hours? Yes.
love it. Love it, and I there's so many people that this has happened with. They've just gone, "Yeah, that seems fun. I'm up for it. I'm down for that." Okay, and like, I think it's a crazy like way of doing stuff. But so we did our community hike, and you came on the community hike with us because have you hiked Hellbender before? We did it on the hike on the community hike.
Yeah, a couple of times. So I went last year. Last year was the first time I hiked it. I went on a little solo hiking camping trip up to the Lake District, and I did Helvellyn, up Swirl Edge and down Striding Edge. So
Okay,
that experience of it on a gorgeous day too. Was really lucky for that. And then, well, I'd
what,
signed up for the
what do you
challenge.
mean? You mean that the weather on our community hike wasn't gorgeous?
I mean, it was special.
That's one word for it. Oh,
Yeah.
my hand, honestly, my hands looked like a dead person's hands when I got down the bottom. They were just white. And I put both pairs of my gloves. I'd used them both, although now I learn that Zach says you should have had three.
Yeah, I should have had 3, should have some waterproof gloves in there. I was surprised to have skin, like, on my cheeks, my my face, like, from that sleet and that wind. It was I guess, a really good exfoliation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like, let me just explain. Anyone who's watching, so we went on our community hike, and basically we set off, but it was a bit drizzly and a bit grey and a little bit windy. It was fine, and we were making our way up, and we started going up the steps, and that was all kind of okay. And then you got to a point where you just went, okay, the wind's really picking up now. And then the rain started. And then we're like, okay, the wind is really going crazy. And by the time we're at the summit, we got 50-mile-an-hour crosswinds. We got sleet. We got hail and rain. And we got one guy up there in a pair of shorts. We got people that are going flooding back the other way. But it wasn't the easiest of weather. So having now done it once, beautiful weather, although a trickier route, but beautiful weather, and now having conquered it in some severely bad weather, has it changed your view on the difficulty of the challenge that you've got coming up? Do you feel more confident, less confident with what you've got to achieve now that after you've had the community hike?
Uh, well, honestly, I think with the community hike, I feel more confident about achieving this in September for sure.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant.
It's always great to train in like crazy conditions. That was crazy. um, but and also too, just doing it with other people and the things that we talked about and learned on the training hike, like some of the tips that Zach gave us about how to manage ourselves if we get injured and how to swanning like as we run down the mountain and using trekking poles efficiently. There's lots of little things in there that really helped. It's just information that I hadn't got from anywhere else before.
For sure.
But yeah, definitely made me think like, oh yeah, I've got this. And two, I've got a great, group of, supporters around me when we do actually tackle it.
So with the challenge, then have you got any kind of specific training program that you've kind of devised, or are you going a little bit winging it, or have you started to work on your program and it's going to really sort of start to climb up from now? Because we've spoken to a fair few people and they've been saying that their plans are really starting to kind of really begin at this sort of point, and they're now starting to think about mileage and the strength work. Have you got any idea, or are you still kind of formulating your plan?
Yeah, so I have been just kind of sticking to my usual so far, but I'm tacking things on every week, right? So my usual is, a few hours of strength training every week, get some cardio in. Like that's the usual stuff. But every week I'm tacking on a little bit more. So I'm pushing my distance. Getting on the stair climber a lot, doing a lot more trail running. So getting out into the Peak District and getting some miles in out there. Another thing, the thing I think is a little bit unorthodox and new for me is I'm conscious that fatigue, I think, is going to be a real challenge in this challenge. And I do not want fatigue to be my arch nemesis on Helvellyn. I want to be able to confront fatigue confidently, with experience. So something I'm doing in my training is at least 2 days a week when I'm feeling tired and fatigued, I'm forcing myself to go run just a short run, fine, but like really asking myself every week to more and more face that fatigue a little bit, just doing something gentle, not too extreme, don't want to hurt myself, but that's something that I am consciously tackling in my training.
Really smart. That's a really smart way to train, because they always say you should, prepare to fail, fail to prepare. You've got to think about everything that's going to happen, and fatigue is going to be a big, big thing for a lot of people. And I think it's a really smart thing to do. And like personally, I would always say as well, if you wake up in the middle of the night at one time, I'd be like, get up and go and do something. Force yourself to do it when your circadian rhythms are all out of whack, because that's another thing. Obviously, you've got to think about doing this if you're going to be doing night hikes, or if you're going to say, right, as soon as it's going to get pitch black, that's it, I'm going to call it, and then I'm going to bed down for a few hours, and then first light, I'm going to start again. It's, I think for me, I was looking at there's one part of the downward portion, and I was like, okay, that's a bit steeper than I thought. So in my head, I'm introducing a lot more like stepping down off high boxes in the gym, as part of my training, so holding my weights and doing bigger step downs to get that kind of movement pattern in my body, because I was like, oh, I'm not used to this. That's just not what my body does at the moment. So I think it's a smart way to do it. Is there anything else that kind of concerns you, well, not concerns you, but is there anything else that you're kind of going, okay, that's on the forefront of my mind as well when it comes to the challenge? Are you anything else, or is it mainly just that fatigue element?
Yeah, some of it is exactly what you were just saying about stepping down. So I've been
Mm.
seeking out the boxes at the gym to do a little bit more of that, like high step up and step down. I think a lot of my training will be in the Peak District. So this weekend was doing a trail run, which also involved a lot of high step ups with, getting over boulders and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's that again, there's still that element of fatigue, like when you're having to do those high steps and those, exaggerated motions and you're feeling tired or you've just woken up for a nap or what have you. So yeah, combination of those things.
Is there any kind of anything that like you're really really excited about with regards to the challenge? Like so I'm a bit of a weird kind of, I don't know whether it's sadistic kind of person, but I look forward to sometimes like the pain elements of things. Like I look forward to those moments of when my body starts to go, now. Now is the point when you're going to get really stiff and tired, and I'm going to start telling you to stop. I almost look forward to that because I'm like, right, this is a chance for me to break down some kind of mental, physical barrier, and for me to become better than I was. This is a chance for me to really graduate in terms of me as an individual. But is there anything that you're like excited about with the event that you're going, I can't wait for that, or for this to happen, or for this part of it, or
Honestly, it's all of that. Like events like this, right, are transcendent. I know that by doing this event, I will overcome things that I've never experienced before. I will come out better, stronger, faster, more capable. And that's why I like doing events like this because it forces me to grow. It gives me a challenge that helps me to sharpen myself and build my body temple. And yeah, I know myself. I know as soon as I finish this challenge, I'll be looking for the next biggest thing, the next way to push myself. Um,
so it's much, so this is much more than just a physical challenge for you as well. This is I suppose, because we always say if you could describe the Apex challenge in one word, what would that word be? And I kind of wonder if that word for you is that transcendence. Is it, so it's much more for you than just that? Is that something that you kind of feel you're always kind of searching for with these events, that something special, that something extra?
yes, 100%. Like any event like this, I feel like there's a lot of things actually in my life that I do. Even, we talked a little bit about the art project that I do. That is also like an endurance and transcendent activity. It's something that forces me to be uncomfortable and to put myself in a unique position. And through doing that, it's like the sculptor with his chisel. Like I'm chiseling myself always, constantly. And, even going back to, we were talking about when I first started going to the gym when I was like 14, 15 years old. And that really resonated with me because I was competing against myself. And that's what this event is about. And you're right, like it's more than just physical, it's psychological, it's spiritual. But I've been through enough of, events like this now that just, when I reflect on my own life and the progress that I've made, I'm like, oh, wow, if I can keep doing that, it's not even that the sky's the limit. I just think there are no limits to what humans can, what humans can achieve.
I love it, and I think that's my thing. I want to see how much, what can I do? I want to see what can I push myself to do, and I think it's that thing of oh, my mind even starts to change. When I say that to myself now, I'm like, no, that's not right. What you really mean is I want to see what can I do? What am I capable of right now? Because just because if you go to do something, let's take Apex and let's say that you only managed 5 summits, well, that's where you're at now. That doesn't mean that that's all it's ever going to be. It just means that you're going to go back and you're going to go, oh, well, maybe I should have worked on this, or maybe I can work on that, or maybe I'll bring this in, and then maybe I'll challenge myself again on the same thing and I'll retest the theory, or maybe I'll go somewhere different and challenge it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So let me ask you then. So let me ask you: is that the word? If you could, if you have to describe the Apex Challenge in one word, what would that one word be?
You guessed it. It's transcendent. Absolutely. Because I think, even just touching on what you were saying there, I think if if you take on this challenge, even if you don't finish it, you are going to transcend yourself. You're going to transcend who you are the day that you did that challenge, the days leading up to that. You will transcend because you will learn something. You'll have more information than you did before. You will have sharpened your capability. Every failure even is an opportunity to learn. So, absolutely transcendent.
Awesome. And then we always ask this question as well, because obviously the Apex Challenge, we are accumulating the total height of Mount Everest. So for some people, it might be that there is physical barriers that they're trying to overcome, which might be their Everest. For some people, it might be the confidence of stepping out on their own and doing something without people they know around them or friends and family and things like that. It might be a confidence thing. So what is your Everest at the moment?
Such a good question. My Everest, I think, is we have a very finite amount of time and energy that we're all given to exist and be on this planet. And I think my Everest is just seeing how many dividends I can get from investing in that energy and that time. Like, what's the payout if I continue pushing myself and chiseling myself and transcending? Where can this go? Because again, I don't think there really is a limit to what we're all capable of. So I feel like my Everest is infinite. It's never ending. But I sure hope that, one day when I'm like super old and looking back on my life, I'm like, hey, that is a hell of a temple that we've built. Look at that. Look at what we've done.
Ah, Courtney, I can talk to you for hours. I really, really could. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. So you take care.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. So that was our wonderful Courtney. I mean, what a beautiful soul. What a beautiful energy that woman had. I mean, I can't say more. That's amazing. And if you feel like maybe you want to have a bit of an experience, if you maybe want to build on your temple a little bit, if you maybe want to look for a bit of a challenge, maybe this is the right one for you. Keep your eye out for her when we're doing the challenge, because honestly, I had so many questions. We had great chats on other stuff, but now you've met her a little bit more. What a fascinating, fascinating individual to spend an afternoon with, or a hike up and down the mountain. Listen, we'll catch you in the next one. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take care. Stay safe.